The massive view screen on the bridge of the UEES Vanguard displayed the sprawling space station, known as the Galactic Nexus. Commander Hana Lee stood with her hands clasped behind her back, eyes fixed on the intricate black metal structure with its distinctive blue energy fields pulsing around the central spires. After centuries of development, humanity had finally achieved faster-than-light travel, allowing them to venture beyond their solar system and make contact with the wider galactic community. "Magnificent, isn't it?" said Dr. Elias Tran, who stood beside her. As the expedition's chief diplomat and lead scientist, he'd been preparing for this moment his entire career. The convergence point of hundreds of civilizations, 10,000 years of shared history and commerce. Commander Lee nodded, maintaining her composure despite the flutter of excitement in her chest. "And we're the newest addition to their community. We've received transmission clearance," announced Lieutenant Williams from the communication station. "The Galactic Trade Council welcomes the Earth delegation to dock at Bay 17 Alpha." Commander Lee straightened her already impeccable uniform. "Inform the escort vessels to maintain position. Dr. Tran, assemble the diplomatic team. This is what we've been preparing for." As the Vanguard shuttle made its approach to the docking bay, Commander Lee observed the dozens of alien vessels of various configurations surrounding the station. Some were massive, easily 10 times the size of Earth's largest ships, while others were sleek and clearly designed for speed rather than power. The diversity was breathtaking. Our scans indicate at least 47 distinct civilizations currently represented at the Nexus, Dr. Tran said, reviewing data on his tablet. "According to the preliminary communications, we'll be meeting with Ambassador Zorath, who serves as the Council's special envoy for new species integration." The shuttle docked with barely a shudder, a testament to the pilot's skill. As the airlock cycled, Commander Lee exchanged a meaningful glance with Dr. Tran. They were about to become the first humans to set foot on an interstellar diplomatic facility, representing not just their government, but their entire species. The airlock door slid open to reveal a delegation of 3 aliens waiting to receive them. In the center stood a tall, slender being with iridescent blue skin and 4 arms, draped in elaborate robes, decorated with what appeared to be astronomical symbols. "Welcome, representatives of Earth." The central figure spoke in perfect English, its voice melodious and precise. "I am Ambassador Zorath. On behalf of the Galactic Trade Council, I extend greetings to your world." Commander Lee stepped forward. "Ambassador Zorath, I am Commander Hana Lee of the United Earth Space Navy, and this is Dr. Elias Tran, our Chief Diplomatic Officer. We bring greetings and peaceful intentions from the people of Earth." Zorath's upper set of arms performed an elaborate gesture that their cultural briefings had not prepared them for. "Your journey here marks a significant milestone for your species. The Council has been observing Earth's development with great interest since your first radio transmissions reached our monitoring stations. The revelation that they had been observed for over a century without their knowledge sent a chill down Commander Lee's spine. But she maintained her diplomatic smile. "We look forward to learning from the collective wisdom of the galactic community." "Indeed," Zorath replied, gesturing for them to follow. "The Council awaits your formal introduction. Please, this way." They were led through a series of vast corridors, each more impressive than the last. Beings of all shapes, sizes, and compositions moved through the spaces with purpose. Some appeared humanoid, while others defied any terrestrial classification system Dr. Tran had studied. Floating spheres of energy drifted alongside insectoid creatures twice the height of a human. Crystalline entities communicated through pulses of light with gelatinous masses that flowed rather than walked. "The Nexus serves as both our primary trading hub and the seat of the Council," Zorath explained as they walked. "All major decisions affecting interstellar commerce and diplomacy are made here. The facility has stood for over 3 millennia, though it has been expanded many times. Dr. Tran was frantically taking notes on his tablet. The engineering required to maintain a structure of this size in space is remarkable. Our calculations suggested such a construction would be theoretically impossible without gravity manipulation technology. Zorath completed his thought. Yes, this is one of many advancements you will become familiar with as your species integrates into our community. The group arrived at an immense doorway that slowly parted to reveal a vast chamber. The Constellation Hall, as Zorath had called it, was a hemispherical room, large enough to house several Earth skyscrapers. Tiered seating surrounded a central platform, and each section contained representatives from different worlds. A massive holographic display of the galaxy rotated slowly above the central dais. Your formal introduction will take place tomorrow, Zorath informed them. Today, you are invited to observe council proceedings to familiarize yourselves with our protocols. Tomorrow, we will discuss the terms of Earth's integration into the galactic community. Commander Lee and Dr. Tran exchanged glances. The word terms carried implications they hadn't anticipated. They had come prepared to establish initial diplomatic and trade relations, not to negotiate integration terms. We look forward to the discussion, Commander Lee replied carefully. However, I should clarify that our mandate extends only to establishing preliminary relations. Any formal agreements would require ratification by Earth's governing body. Zorath's 4 eyes blinked in a sequential pattern. Of course, Commander. However, certain baseline requirements apply to all new species seeking access to galactic resources and protection. These are non-negotiable standards that have ensured peace and prosperity for thousands of years. The next day arrived with a mixture of anticipation and unease. Commander Lee had spent half the night communicating with Earth's United Nations Security Council, updating them on the developments and receiving further instructions. The message had been clear: proceed with caution, gather information, make no binding commitments. The Earth delegation was escorted once again to the Constellation Hall, but this time they were led to the central platform. Commander Lee estimated there were at least 1,000 representatives in attendance, all watching the humans with undisguised curiosity. From an elevated position at the far end of the hall, a new figure emerged. Unlike Zorath's blue coloration, this being wore black robes with silver accents, and its skin was a deep crimson. 4 ornate horns curved from its elongated head, and when it spoke, the voice resonated throughout the chamber without any visible amplification technology. I am Supreme Leader Izar, Sovereign of the Galactic Trade Council, the figure announced. Today, we welcome the representatives of Earth to our community. After centuries of observation, we have determined that your species has achieved the minimum technological threshold for formal recognition. Commander Lee stepped forward. On behalf of the people of Earth, we thank you for this recognition and look forward to peaceful exchange of knowledge and resources. Izar's expression was unreadable to human eyes. Before such exchanges can begin, the terms of the honor tribute must be established and accepted. Honor tribute? Dr. Tran whispered to Commander Lee. This wasn't in any of our briefing materials. Zorath stepped forward. The honor tribute is the cornerstone of our galactic stability. All member species contribute according to their capabilities and receive protection and access to technologies beyond their development level in return. Izar raised a 7-fingered hand, and a holographic display appeared before the Earth delegation. The terms for Earth are as follows. First, a contribution of 40% of your annual nuclear energy production to fuel Nexus operations and defense systems. Second, a personnel contribution of 50,000 Earth citizens to serve 15-year terms in Council construction and maintenance projects. Third, all Earth military vessels will be placed under Council oversight, with operational authority residing with the Galactic Defense Command. The terms hit Commander Lee like a physical blow. This wasn't a diplomatic agreement. It was a demand for subjugation, 40% of Earth's nuclear energy would cripple their power grid. 50,000 citizens for 15 years amounted to indentured servitude. And surrendering military authority would leave Earth defenseless, except for whatever protection the Council deigned to provide. Dr. Tran's face had gone pale. He leaned close to Commander Lee's ear. This isn't a trade agreement. They're establishing a tributary system with Earth as a vassal state. Commander Lee maintained her composure with effort. Supreme Leader Izar, Ambassador Zorath. These terms require careful consideration. As I mentioned previously, I don't have the authority to commit to such extensive provisions. I request time to communicate these terms to Earth's governing council. Izar's eyes narrowed. Of course, Commander. You have 24 Earth hours to begin the acceptance process. Be advised that delay or rejection of the honor tribute would be unprecedented and would necessitate reconsideration of Earth's status within the galactic community. The thinly veiled threat hung in the air as the Earth delegation was escorted from the platform. As soon as they returned to the Vanguard, Commander Lee called an emergency meeting of her senior officers and the diplomatic team. The ship's secure conference room was filled to capacity, with tension thick in the air. "This is extortion, plain and simple," said Admiral Jackson, Commander Lee's second-in-command. "They're demanding tribute like some kind of interstellar protection racket." Dr. Tran displayed his analysis on the main screen. "I've calculated the impact of losing 40% of our nuclear energy production. Even with our renewable sources operating at maximum capacity, we'd face rolling blackouts across most continents. Critical infrastructure would be severely compromised." "And 50,000 people," Lieutenant Rodriguez from Security added. "That's slavery, regardless of what fancy name they give it." Commander Lee studied the faces around the table. "Our orders were to establish peaceful contact and preliminary trade relations. This goes far beyond that mandate." "We should return to Earth immediately," Admiral Jackson suggested. "This is a decision that needs to be made at the highest levels. If we leave without addressing their demands, they might interpret it as rejection," Dr. Tran pointed out. "And we don't know what reconsideration of Earth's status might entail." Commander Lee nodded grimly. "I agree. We need to buy time while informing Earth of the situation." She turned to Communications Officer Park. "Establish a secure channel to UN headquarters. I need to speak with President Marquez immediately." Within the hour, Commander Lee was facing a screen showing the grim expression of President Selena Marquez and the United Nations Security Council. "This is deeply concerning," President Marquez said after hearing Commander Lee's report. "These demands would devastate our economy and compromise our sovereignty." "There's more," Commander Lee added. "During our observation of Council proceedings, we noticed that many species appear to be in similar tributary relationships. Those with the most advanced technology seem exempt from these requirements, while newer arrivals bear heavier burdens. A hierarchical system that keeps the powerful in control while exploiting developing worlds," observed UN Secretary-General Afolayan. "History repeats itself, even on a galactic scale." "What are our options?" President Marquez asked. "Diplomatically, we're at a severe disadvantage," Commander Lee admitted. "We have no allies in the Council, no leverage, and limited understanding of their capabilities. Based on the technology we've observed, their military power far exceeds our own. Then perhaps we should consider temporary compliance while building our strength," suggested one of the Security Council members. "Better to bend than to break." President Marquez's expression hardened. "I will not commit 50,000 citizens to what amounts to intergalactic servitude, nor cripple our infrastructure. We've fought too hard for our freedom to surrender it so easily." "I agree, Madam President," Commander Lee said. "However, outright rejection could provoke military action we're not prepared to face." Dr. Tran, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "There may be a third option," During our tour of the Nexus, I observed tensions between certain species. Not all members appear satisfied with the Council's leadership. If we could identify potential allies or fault lines within their system. President Marquez considered this. A divide-and-conquer approach. It's risky, but it gives us a chance to assert our independence without immediate confrontation. She straightened in her chair. Commander Lee, your new orders are to stall for time. Request clarifications. Propose modifications. Anything to delay without outright rejection. Meanwhile, Dr. Tran will gather intelligence on potential fractures within the Council structure. And here on Earth? Commander Lee asked. We'll prepare for all contingencies, President Marquez said grimly. I'm calling a special session of the General Assembly. If diplomacy fails, we need to be ready. As the communication ended, Commander Lee turned to her team. You heard the President. We have work to do. For the next several days, the Earth delegation engaged in what appeared to be good-faith negotiations with Council representatives. Commander Lee requested detailed explanations of how the tribute would be collected and utilized, proposed phased implementation over decades, rather than immediate compliance, and raised concerns about the impact on Earth's development. Meanwhile, Dr. Tran had been making connections throughout the Nexus. Using his scientific expertise as an entree, he engaged representatives from various worlds in seemingly innocent discussions about research collaboration, technology exchange, and cultural understanding. But beneath these conversations lay a carefully crafted intelligence-gathering operation. I've identified at least 7 species that appear resentful of the current power structure, Dr. Tran reported during a secure briefing aboard the Vanguard. Most interesting is the Caldarian delegation. They've been under the tribute system for over 3 centuries, and there are indications they've been developing clandestine technologies in violation of Council restrictions. Can we trust them? Commander Lee asked. Dr. Tran's expression was guarded. Trust would be premature, but there's potential for mutual benefit. They've hinted at knowledge of the Council's defensive systems that could prove valuable. On Earth, preparation took a more direct approach. President Marquez had authorized Project Nemesis, a crash program to develop unconventional weapons capable of challenging advanced alien technology. Lieutenant Arun Das, a brilliant young physicist from the Indian Space Research Organization, led a team focusing on kinetic energy weapons designed to bypass energy shields. Conventional wisdom says energy shields stop everything, Lieutenant Das explained to his team. But our analysis of the data from Commander Lee suggests their shields are optimized to counter energy weapons. Plasma, laser, particle beams. They may be vulnerable to pure kinetic impacts if delivered at sufficient velocity. His team worked around the clock, modifying existing satellite systems and repurposing orbital platforms. The plan was audacious, perhaps even desperate, but it was better than surrender. Back at the Nexus, tension was mounting. Ambassador Zorath had grown increasingly impatient with what he perceived as delay tactics. Commander Lee, the Council's patience is not unlimited, Zorath said during their latest meeting. Supreme Leader Izar has expressed concern about Earth's apparent reluctance to embrace the established order. Commander Lee maintained her diplomatic demeanor. Ambassador, we are simply ensuring that we fully understand all implications before making commitments that will affect generations of our people. Surely, thoroughness is a value the Council respects. Zorath's upper arms made a dismissive gesture. Thoroughness has its place, but so does decisive action. The Supreme Leader has requested your presence tomorrow for a final determination. I strongly advise you to come prepared to accept the terms as presented. After Zorath departed, Commander Lee turned to Dr. Tran. We're out of time. What have you learned from your contacts? Dr. Tran's eyes gleamed with excitement. Something potentially game-changing. The Caldarian scientist I've been working with, Nexa, provided encrypted data about the Nexus defense systems. They operate on a predictable rotating frequency pattern, There's a 3-second window during each cycle where specific sections are vulnerable. Is the information reliable? I believe so. The Kaldarians have been secretly testing the system for decades, planning their own resistance. They've held back because they lack the resources for a sustained challenge. But if multiple species were to act simultaneously... Commander Lee nodded slowly. Contact Earth. It's time to brief President Marquez on our contingency plan. The next day, Commander Lee and Dr. Tran prepared to face Supreme Leader Izar for what both sides understood would be a pivotal meeting. Before leaving the Vanguard, Commander Lee sent a coded message to Earth. Constellation Ascendant. It was the signal to initiate Project Nemesis if diplomatic efforts failed completely. The Constellation Hall was filled beyond capacity. Word had spread that the humans were proving difficult, and many council members were curious to see how Izar would handle this unprecedented resistance. Representatives of Earth, Izar's voice boomed across the chamber. The Council has been patient during your period of adjustment. Now the time for decision has arrived. Do you accept the terms of the honor tribute as presented? Commander Lee stepped forward, her posture straight and dignified. Supreme Leader Izar, members of the Galactic Trade Council, I thank you for your patience. After careful consideration and consultation with Earth's governing body, I must inform you that we cannot accept the terms as presented. A shocked murmur ran through the assembled representatives. Izar's crimson skin darkened to an almost black hue. This is unprecedented, Izar said, his voice dangerously quiet. Perhaps you misunderstand the nature of this arrangement. This is not a negotiation. Commander Lee, the honor tribute is a requirement for all species seeking membership in our community. Commander Lee's voice remained steady. We understand perfectly, Supreme Leader. Earth does not seek membership on these terms. We came here hoping to establish mutually beneficial relations based on respect and equal exchange. What you propose is subjugation, not partnership. Izar rose to his full height, towering over the central platform. Your species' arrogance is remarkable for one so young. You stand in the heart of a civilization thousands of years beyond your comprehension, and yet you presume to dictate terms. We dictate nothing, Commander Lee replied. We simply decline to surrender our sovereignty and the well-being of our people. Then, you leave the Council no choice, Izar declared. Until Earth accepts its proper place in the galactic order, you will be isolated. No trade, no diplomatic recognition, no protection from the dangers that lurk in the void between stars. Further, your delegation is hereby confined to the Nexus pending review of Earth's status. Commander Lee had anticipated this response. She touched a concealed communicator on her wrist, sending a simple signal to Admiral Jackson aboard the Vanguard. Simultaneously, Dr. Tran activated a small device that began interfering with the Nexus's internal sensors, a gift from their Kaldarian allies. Supreme Leader, Commander Lee said, her voice ringing clearly through the hall. Earth respects the Council's long history and achievements, but we will not bow to intimidation or threats. We are not your tribute. We are not your servants. We are free, and we will remain free. At that exact moment, the first wave of Project Nemesis activated. Far from Earth, multiple kinetic projectiles, simple rods of tungsten, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed, struck precisely calculated points on the Nexus's outer defensive grid. The impact occurred during the 3-second vulnerability window, identified by the Kaldarians. The entire station shuddered. Lights flickered, and alarms began to sound throughout the complex. Confusion erupted in the Constellation Hall as representatives looked around in panic. "What have you done?" Zorath demanded, rushing to Commander Lee. "Demonstrated that technological superiority isn't absolute," she replied calmly. "This is merely a warning. Earth wishes peace, but we will not be subjugated." Izar was receiving urgent communications from his security forces. His expression transformed from shock to rage. "Arrest them immediately," he commanded. "The humans have committed an act of war." Security forces began converging on the Earth delegation, but Commander Lee had planned for this moment. She activated her emergency transport beacon, and within seconds, she and Dr. Tran were enveloped in a field of energy. The technology, borrowed from a sympathetic Kildarian scientist, was crude by Council standards, but effective enough to disrupt the local containment field. They rematerialized aboard the Vanguard shuttle, which had been positioned precisely for this extraction. "Get us back to the ship," Commander Lee ordered the pilot. "Maximum speed." As the shuttle raced away from the Nexus, they could see Council pursuit vessels being deployed. "Will we make it to the Vanguard before they intercept us?" Dr. Tran asked. "We don't need to," Commander Lee replied. "Phase 2 should begin right about now." At that moment, Earth initiated Operation Starfall. Thousands of orbiting satellites, many of them decades-old space debris that had been secretly retrofitted with minimal propulsion systems, suddenly activated around Earth. Each one was on a calculated collision course with key Council military assets that had been positioned in the solar system during the negotiations. The Council ships, expecting to face conventional weapons, were unprepared for the swarm of seemingly harmless debris that suddenly became guided projectiles. Their advanced targeting systems, designed to counter energy weapons and missiles, struggled to track the thousands of small, cold objects approaching from multiple vectors. Aboard the Vanguard, Admiral Jackson watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. "The kinetic strike on the Nexus defenses was successful, Commander," he reported as Lee and Tran arrived on the bridge. "And Operation Starfall has the Council fleet in disarray. They weren't expecting primitive technology to be weaponized so effectively." "Where do we stand with the Kildarians and the other potential allies?" Commander Lee asked. 7 species have already initiated their own uprisings within the Nexus," Dr. Tran reported, scanning incoming data. "The Kildarians have seized control of 3 secondary control centers. The Volari have disabled the Council's communication hub. It's spreading faster than we anticipated." On the main view screen, they could see the massive Nexus station in the distance. Sections of it were dark, while others flashed with internal conflicts. Council ships were racing in multiple directions, unsure which threat to address first. "Open a channel to Supreme Leader Izar," Commander Lee ordered. "All frequencies." When the connection was established, Izar's face appeared on screen, contorted with fury. "You have made a grave mistake, human. The full might of the Council will descend upon your world for this treachery." Commander Lee stood tall. "This isn't treachery, Supreme Leader. This is liberation, not just for Earth, but for all worlds you've subjugated under your honor tribute. Look around you. Your oppressive system is collapsing as we speak." "Temporary chaos," Izar snarled. "We have quelled rebellions before." "Not like this," Commander Lee countered. "Because this time, the oppressed worlds are united. While you were focused on forcing Earth to submit, we were building alliances with others who share our desire for freedom." Dr. Tran stepped forward. "We've already transmitted shield frequency vulnerabilities to 27 formerly subjugated worlds. Your technological advantage relied on keeping others ignorant. That advantage is gone." Izar's expression shifted from rage to calculation. "What do you want?" "A new beginning," Commander Lee said firmly. "The dissolution of the tribute system. Equal standing for all spacefaring civilizations. A genuinely cooperative council, rather than an exploitative hierarchy." "Impossible," Izar declared. "The system has maintained order for millennia." "Order for whom?" Commander Lee asked. "The old order is ending, with or without your cooperation. You can help shape what comes next, or you can be swept aside by it." The communication abruptly cut off as another series of explosions rocked the Nexus. "He's not convinced," Admiral Jackson observed. "He doesn't need to be," Commander Lee replied. "The momentum has shifted. Prepare for emergency jump to Earth coordinates. We need to coordinate the next phase with President Marquez. Back on Earth. The situation was tense but controlled. When the Vanguard arrived in orbit, Commander Lee was immediately summoned to an emergency session of the United Nations Security Council. President Marquez greeted her with a firm handshake. Your actions were bold, Commander. Some might say reckless. Necessary, Madam President. Commander Lee responded. The Council would accept nothing less than complete submission. We had to demonstrate that Earth would not be easily conquered. And in doing so, you've sparked a galactic revolution, the UN Secretary-General observed. Reports are coming in from multiple sources. At least 30 worlds have declared independence from the Council's tribute system. Dr. Tran displayed a holographic map showing the spreading rebellion. The Council's power was built on technological intimidation and division among subject worlds. Once those barriers began to fall, the entire system became vulnerable. What happens now? President Marquez asked. We've made our stand, but Earth remains vulnerable. The Council still possesses vastly superior technology and resources. But not superior will, Commander Lee said, and not superior allies. The knowledge we've shared with other subjugated worlds has created a bond of trust. Already, scientists from 7 different species have offered to share technologies the Council had forbidden them to develop. And Lieutenant Das reports that Project Nemesis can be expanded significantly, added General Thompson, the Joint Chiefs representative. The kinetic defense system proved more effective than anticipated against their shield technology. President Marquez studied the reports before her. Then we stand firm. Earth will not pay tribute, will not surrender its citizens to servitude, and will not relinquish control of its military assets. She looked up at Commander Lee. But neither will we seek to destroy what could be rebuilt as a force for good. If the Council is willing to transform into a true cooperative of equals, Earth would support such an effort. Over the next several weeks, the uprising spread throughout Council space. The carefully maintained hierarchy collapsed as more worlds discovered they could resist. Supreme Leader Izar eventually fled the Nexus as his support evaporated. And a provisional governing committee composed of representatives from various worlds took control. 3 months after the initial confrontation, Commander Lee found herself once again approaching the Nexus, this time as Earth's official ambassador to the newly formed Free Worlds Alliance. The station looked different now. Battle damage was still visible in some sections, but new construction was underway, incorporating design elements from multiple cultures rather than the imposing uniformity of the old Council. Dr. Tran accompanied her, his eyes bright with excitement. Remarkable how quickly things have changed. The scientific exchange program already has participants from 53 worlds. Technologies that were hoarded for centuries are now being shared openly. Not all of them, Commander Lee noted. Some of the former Council leadership escaped with advanced weapons technology. They'll remain a threat until they're brought to justice. One challenge at a time, Commander, Dr. Tran said with a smile. Today we celebrate a milestone. They were greeted at the docking bay by Nexa, their Keldarian ally, who now served on the Alliance's Executive Committee. Welcome, friends, she said, her crystalline voice resonating pleasantly. The ceremonial hall is prepared for the signing. The Constellation Hall had been renamed Unity Chamber, and its tiered seating had been reconfigured to place all representatives on equal levels. Where once Supreme Leader Izar's elevated throne had dominated the space, now a simple round table stood, symbolizing the equality of all member worlds. Representatives from over 100 worlds watched as Commander Lee approached the table where the Galactic Concordat, the founding document of the Free Worlds Alliance, awaited her signature. Earth was not the most technologically advanced world represented, nor the oldest civilization, but its stand against oppression had earned it a place of respect. Before I sign, Commander Lee addressed the assembly. I wish to acknowledge that what we celebrate today was not achieved by Earth alone. For centuries, many of you endured under a system that denied your basic dignity and freedom. You kept the flame of liberty alive in your hearts until the moment came to reclaim it. Earth is honored to stand beside you as equals in this new beginning. She signed the document, then stepped aside as representatives from other worlds did the same. When the ceremony concluded, Dr. Tran approached with several members of his scientific delegation. "We have an announcement," he said. "As a gesture of good faith, Earth is sharing complete specifications for our kinetic defense technology with all Alliance members. Additionally, we're establishing an open research initiative to develop sustainable energy sources that will benefit all our worlds." The announcement was met with enthusiastic approval. Many of the former tribute worlds had suffered from resource exploitation and technological suppression. The promise of energy independence represented not just practical benefit, but symbolic liberation. As the formal proceedings transitioned to a celebration, Commander Lee found a quiet moment to stand by one of the vast observation windows overlooking the stars. The galaxy looked different to her now, not a vast unknown filled with potential threats, but a community of worlds with shared aspirations for freedom and cooperation. Nexa joined her at the window. "Your people have an interesting saying that Elias shared with me. All beings are created equal. It's a powerful idea. One we're still striving to fully realize," Commander Lee admitted. "But it's a principle worth fighting for, that no being should be subjugated, that freedom is an inherent right, not a privilege to be granted by the powerful." "The former council leaders never understood that," Nexa said. "They believed stability required hierarchy, that some must rule and others must serve. They couldn't conceive of strength arising from voluntary cooperation." "Their mistake," Commander Lee replied, "was thinking that tribute taken by force makes one stronger than gifts freely given. What we're building here will prove otherwise." Below them, Earth shone like a blue jewel against the blackness of space. No longer isolated, no longer just beginning its journey among the stars, but taking its place in a community of free worlds. The road ahead would not be easy. The former council leaders remained at large. Many worlds faced the challenge of rebuilding after centuries of exploitation, and the vast gulfs between different species' perspectives would require patience and understanding to bridge. But looking at the diverse beings now, working together in the chamber behind her, Commander Lee felt confident that they had made the right choice. Humanity had reached for the stars, not to conquer or be conquered, but to join a greater community as equals. They had refused to bow, refused to surrender their freedom, and in doing so had helped ignite a transformation that would reshape the galaxy. "Commander," Lieutenant Arandas approached with an excited expression. "We've just received word from the Keldarian science team. The hybrid shield technology is showing promising results in initial tests. If it works, we'll have defenses that combine the best elements of both our approaches." "Excellent work, Lieutenant," Commander Lee said. "Make sure Dr. Tran gets the full report." As Das hurried away, Nexa made a sound that Commander Lee had learned was the Keldarian equivalent of laughter. "Your species moves quickly." "We've had to," Commander Lee replied. "But we have much to learn from those who have navigated the stars for millennia before us." "A fair exchange," Nexa agreed. "Knowledge for knowledge, respect for respect. The foundation of true alliance." From across the chamber, Dr. Tran caught Commander Lee's eye and gestured toward a group of scientists from various worlds, deep in animated discussion. The universal translator struggled to keep pace with their excited exchange of ideas. "I should join them," Commander Lee said. "The technical details of our defense cooperation need to be finalized." As she moved through the crowd, members of various species nodded in recognition or performed their cultural gestures of respect. Not because Earth was powerful or ancient, but because it had stood for a principle that resonated across the biological and cultural diversity of the galaxy. that freedom was worth fighting for, and that true strength came not from domination, but from cooperation. In the communications center of the station, a message arrived from Earth. President Marquez had been addressing the United Nations General Assembly about the historic signing of the Concordat. Today marks not just a new chapter in human history, but in the history of all free beings. The President had declared, "We join the galactic community, not as conquerors or as subjects, but as partners in a shared future. The stars call to us not to subjugate or be subjugated, but to discover new possibilities together." The galaxy would never be the same. The age of tribute had ended. The age of alliance had begun. 6 months later, Commander Lee stood on the observation deck of the newly commissioned Alliance flagship, Freedom's Dawn. The vessel represented a true collaboration, combining Earth's kinetic defense systems, Caldarian shield technology, Volari propulsion, and contributions from a dozen other species. Dr. Tran joined her, datapad in hand as always. The former council leaders have been tracked to the Cygnus sector. Intelligence suggests they're attempting to rally support among conservative factions that benefited from the old system. "How many worlds still support them?" Commander Lee asked. "Fewer each day," Dr. Tran replied. "As the benefits of cooperation become evident, the appeal of returning to hierarchy diminishes. The Alliance has already surpassed the old Council in technological innovation, simply by allowing free exchange of ideas." "And the Tribunal?" "Proceeding as planned. Izar and 12 other former Council leaders will face charges of systemic exploitation, illegal technology restrictions, and crimes against sentient beings. The evidence is overwhelming." Commander Lee nodded. Satisfied. Justice would be served not through vengeance, but through a fair process that acknowledged the harm done while looking toward healing and reconciliation. "Our first deep space mission begins tomorrow," she said, changing the subject. "Exploring beyond the boundaries of former Council space. There's so much we've yet to discover." "Exploration rather than exploitation," Dr. Tran observed. "A welcome change in priority." On the main deck below them, crew members from 17 different species worked together, each bringing unique perspectives and abilities to their shared mission. Some had been bitter enemies under the old regime, their worlds pitted against each other by Council policies designed to prevent unified resistance. Now, they stood side by side, united by common purpose. Lieutenant Das entered the observation deck, his face alight with excitement. "Commander, the new sensor array has just come online. Its range exceeds our projections by 37%. "Well done, Lieutenant," Commander Lee said. "Make sure the specifications are shared with all Alliance members according to the open technology protocols." "Already in progress," Das assured her. The Volari engineering team had some fascinating suggestions for further improvements. "We're establishing a joint development project." As Das departed, Dr. Tran smiled. "Remember when we first approached the Nexus? How overwhelming it felt to encounter so many advanced civilizations." "I remember thinking we had so much to learn," Commander Lee replied. "And we do. But we also had something to teach, something that centuries of Council rule had suppressed in many worlds. The value of freedom," Dr. Tran said. "The strength that comes from standing up for what's right, even against overwhelming odds." "And the power of hope," Commander Lee added, watching the stars through the viewport. "Never underestimate a species fighting for its liberty." The Freedom's Dawn prepared for its maiden voyage, not as a warship, though it could defend itself if necessary, but as an explorer and diplomat. Its mission represented the fulfillment of humanity's oldest dream, to reach for the stars not in fear or domination, but in friendship and discovery. Commander Lee thought back to that pivotal moment in the Constellation Hall, when she had refused the Council's demands. It had been a leap into the unknown, a defiance of power that could have ended in disaster. But sometimes, courage was rewarded, and sometimes standing firm against injustice inspired others to do the same. Helm reports all systems ready. Commander, the communications officer announced, Alliance Central has cleared us for departure. Commander Lee straightened her uniform and smiled. Tell them we're ready to begin. The journey continues. As the Freedom's Dawn moved gracefully away from the station, its diverse crew united in purpose. Commander Lee reflected that tribute taken by force could never match the power of respect freely given and cooperation freely offered. Earth had refused to bow, and in doing so had helped forge something far greater than the system it had defied. A true alliance of free worlds reaching together toward a brighter future among the stars. The universe, vast and ancient, had seen empires rise and fall across millennia. But perhaps this time, something truly new was emerging, not built on subjugation and hierarchy, but on the revolutionary idea that all beings, regardless of their world of origin, were created equal, with inherent dignity and inalienable rights. It was an idea worth defending, an idea worth sharing across the stars, an idea that had changed the galaxy forever.